Welcome, history lovers and mystery solvers. Have you ever wondered how museums protect priceless artifacts from thieves, protesters, disasters, and even forgery? Well, buckle up, because today we're diving into the high-stakes world of museum security and preservation. From climate-controlled vaults to art heists straight out of the Hollywood blockbuster movies, this is your ultimate behind-the-scenes look at how museums keep history safe. Buckle up and let's go. First up, we have preservation. Museums don't just show off history, they fight to keep it from turning into dust. That means maintaining perfectly controlled temperature and humidity, conducting regular upkeep, and even running scientific tests to catch damage you cannot see. Think of it like giving ancient artifacts a spa day, gentle cleaning here and there, special treatments, and a climate controlled environment designed to keep them looking fabulous for centuries. All right, let's talk about the meat and potatoes. Let's talk security. This is the good stuff. Because let's face it, history is valuable, and someone out there always wants to steal it.
How did you get by the laser field in the Great Hall?
Aha, the laser fields. Well,
Museums defend their treasures with high tech surveillance systems, motion detectors, alarms, and highly trained guards. It's like a real life version of Ocean's 11, except this time, the good guys are winning. Warning signs, reinforced display cases, and rock solid emergency protocols all work together to ensure artifacts stay where they belong, right there in the museum for everybody to enjoy. Now, with all the theft and all these guys wanting to steal things, people might ask, or you might be wondering, what about those pieces that are too delicate or too valuable to be put out on display? What about these priceless pieces? Well, they get VIP treatment, of course. They get stored up in secure storage, where talking safes, vaults, and tightly controlled environments where light, temperature, and humidity are all carefully monitored and constantly adjusted. It's basically a five-star hotel for history. No heat waves, no humidity, no surprises. For these rare and priceless artifacts, public historians work to create replicas so that they are not completely lost to the public eye. Now, to help us get a stronger view and a stronger understanding of how security is handled in a museum, I took the opportunity to interview Jerry Sims, who is the building security manager for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints Church History Museum. Through our interview, we talked a little bit about how his officers patrol. Also, we talked about some of the security measures that are in place that help the museum keep their artifacts and their beautiful artwork secure.
Well, in my opinion, banks and other institutions, federal institutions, things like that, they're a lot more restrictive on where you can go, what you can see, what you can touch. Where a museum, they're inviting people in to be explorative, to move around into all the places, to interact with exhibits and things like that. So the biggest difference is a museum is inviting all these people into these spaces where in other facilities, you're restricted to a lobby or certain areas. So your mobility is restricted. Where in a museum, they encourage you to explore and roam and see what's there. Well, one of the first things that we do is we do what's called a risk assessment, where we're looking at any type of vulnerabilities within the building, around the building, technological vulnerabilities. We look at the environment of where the museum is. We're located in the heart of Salt Lake City, and with that, we've got a lot of foot traffic. We've got sports arenas nearby. We have the Capitol building close by. So it brings a lot of different uh, types of risks, just where it's located and the type of foot traffic that we see. So part of that assessment is to looking at all these different aspects of not only the building but the surroundings, and to look at and see what can create problems, what things can we mitigate, and we look at ways of hardening the museum as a potential target for people with nefarious motives, whether that's vandalism, theft, what have you. Uh, Part of that is the current, how they protect the artifacts, and that can range from a simple tape on the floor that says "Do not cross" to plexiglass cases. In some cases, at least not in our museum, but I know in other museums, they have almost motion sensors. If your hand crosses a certain plane, it'll set an off alarm. We do have some of our display cases that are alarmed, so if they get tampered with, we do get notified with that. And then the human aspect of that is to having docents that are watchful and that are in the key areas, especially in the galleries where we know we have either very valuable historical artifacts that they want to make sure is protected. Sometimes when we have displays on loan, it can, in the contract with those, sometimes the owners will say, well, we want this type of security. So the museums have to kind of be flexible with the needs of those generous people who donate different artifacts and historical items. So we take all of that, the human aspect, the technological aspect, and then doing this assessment of the environment that the museum exists in. And with all that is how we kind of come up with the security plan on the best way that we can provide security for the museum. So we've had two, I'd say, significant incidents within the last few years. Back in 2022, we had a team of a man and woman that had come in and were able to open up one of the displays and take a valuable Bible and a pocket watch. It wasn't until an hour or more afterwards that we realized that something was missing. And so in that case, we reviewed video footage of the area. We were able to get a decent view of the man. Um, once we noticed that something was stolen, the museum administration called the police, filed a police report. Fortunately, during their investigation, they discovered that some of the items had been taken to a pawn shop, and where they got the identification of the person that sold them the items. And so we were able to recover the items, and the suspect, at least one of them, was arrested. Most recently, just this last year, we had a 100-year-old Tongan tapa cloth that had been donated to the church that was on display. Um, the tapa cloth itself had a plexiglass barrier around the sides of it, but nothing on top. And during when there wasn't a docent in the area, a suspect came in uh, and had a little vial of paint and drizzled paint all over the tapa cloth. Um, Again, unfortunately, it wasn't discovered until 2 days after it had happened. But again, with video footage, we were able to identify the individual. Um, in this case, we showed the police the video. The police actually recognized the woman because they had uh, interactions with her, recent interactions with her, and so we were able to. They were able to arrest her, and charges were pressed. Unfortunately, the tapa cloth was damaged. The conservationists that worked for the museum took it, and I don't know the status of the cloth, if it was been able to be restored. I don't know. So the best way to prevent something like that is one, um, technology is a wonderful tool, but technology alone isn't going to prevent or stop it. Technology usually is an after the fact that, let's investigate what happened. So the important thing, or the most valuable asset that we would have in asset protection would be a docent in that area monitoring. So a human body that can be in the area and be able to interact with the people on the floor. If someone does get a little too close or something looks suspicious, they can approach the person. Um, and so being eyes and ears, especially in those areas where we know we have valuable artifacts, I think is critical to making sure that there isn't any loss of these artifacts or items. We have a pretty good working relationship with local law enforcement. Um, we were fortunate in the two cases that I previously mentioned that one, the police officers knew the one suspect, and the other one, we were just fortunate enough that a pawn shop owner kind of reported it, and it was able to have a good resolution. Um, and so we were lucky. We were extremely lucky in both those cases. But as far as what can we do as far as reporting it, I mean, that's all we can do. Once something does happen, reporting the police. The thing that the museum has to do in that regards, is they have to know the value of the artifact, because that's going to determine, was this, larceny? Was this, a felony? Was it a misdemeanor? Depending on the value of the artifact. So the museum curators or conservationists have to have kind of all that information and able to pass that along to the police for any kind of adjudication of pressing charges and what the DA would do with that if it's an extremely high value. Yeah. And in the instance of the tapa cloth, that was one of the first questions that came back after the arrest is the district attorney wanted to know, well, what's the value of this item? And that's kind of difficult when it comes to historical artifacts. How do you put a price on that? In some people's eyes, they're priceless. The tapa cloth was almost 100 years old, hand drawn and painted by sisters in Tonga. And so as monetary, it may not be a ton of money, but historical and, as far as the church is concerned, it was a priceless artifact. So trying to figure out a way of determining the value is I think in some regards subjective, but I think that I'm not sure what the final estimated value was, but I'm sure it was significant. Oh, goodness.
That can either be church related or non-church related.
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I'll give you maybe a little bit of both, church related and not. I would love to have, a first edition of the Book of Mormon. You know, probably in an acid-free box, so it's preserved, but where it could be displayed. I think that was neat just because of the historical nature of it, and being a member of the church, I think it would just be something that I would prize, and something that my hopefully my children would appreciate, and so on. Um, Outside of the church, I think if it existed, I would love to have the document from Ellis Island when my family immigrated from Ireland. Just the record of the actual record, seeing their names written down, when they came in. I think that would be extremely cool, extremely neat to have, and something that again would be just huge. What's the word I'm looking for? Something to pass on, a heritage to my kids and grandkids, and that, here's when your great grandparents came to the United States. For me, that would be cool.
Now, museums don't just plan for theft or vandalism, they also plan for disaster. Museums just don't sit around hoping for the best. They plan. Disaster response teams are trained to move fast, move efficiently, whether it's a fire, a flood, or even a major earthquake. Fireproof storage with halon systems, evacuation plans, and quick action mean the difference between saving an artifact or losing it forever. And museums take extra special care to make sure that the plans are in place so that those things, when they happen, we do not lose these valuable, wonderful, amazing artifacts. And then there's my personal favorite, the crown jewel of all museum mysteries, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist. On March 18th, 1990, while Boston was still recovering from St. Patrick's Day festivities, two men dressed as police officers talked their way into the museum. Once inside, they overpowered the guards, duct taped them to pipes in the basement, and then they proceeded to steal 13 priceless pieces of artwork. We're talking a Rembrandt, a Vermeer, Degas, gone, vanished, nowhere to be found. To this day, not a single piece has ever been recovered, and it remains the biggest unsolved art theft in world history. The empty frames still hang on the walls as a haunting reminder of what was lost. Enter forgery. Yes, believe it or not, forgery is still a thing, and museums in the past have been fooled, and sometimes by the unlikeliest of people. Case in point, Mark Hoffman. In the 1980s, this mild mannered historical document dealer turned out to be one of the most brilliant master forgers who created fake historical documents so convincing, even seasoned experts and institutions, including the LDS Church, were duped. His pièce de résistance, if you will, was the Salamander Letter, a forged piece that rewrote early Mormon history with the stroke of a pen. Hoffman's web of lies unraveled only after two bombings in Salt Lake City left two people dead, bringing his crimes into the spotlight. Since then, museums have majorly upped their game in the forgery department, deploying ultraviolet light scans, ink analysis, paper dating, and forensic document examination to spot fakes before they ever reach the display case. So the next time that you're strolling through your favorite museum, remember, it's not just about what you see on display. Behind the scenes, there is a whole wide world of preservation, protection, and detective work happening daily to keep history safe for generations to come. If you've loved this dive into the secrets of museum history, hit the like button, Subscribe for more history mysteries, and let us know in the comments what is your favorite museum artifact and which artifact you want hanging on your wall. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep exploring the past.